All right. I want to start by reading an exchange from a correspondent. The one thing you never seem to address is the Dominion voter machines. Doesn't it strike you as odd that the servers are in Spain and Germany, close to George Soros, and the same machines used in Cuba and Venezuela to rig elections? The fraud, you say, is not there, is probably some code in the software not easily seen. But there's this thing called statistics, quite better than the polling BS you always refer to. How come all the key swing states Trump was leading until the wee hours of the morning when all the votes that came in roared in for Biden, about 96%? And here's the amazing thing. In all states, the exact same percentages, statistically impossible. You are a gullible fool. Who is the gullible fool here? The Dominion voter systems, he writes, doesn't it strike you as odd the servers are in Spain and Germany? They're not in Spain and Germany. Never have been in Spain and Germany. He's confusing Dominion voter systems for the Smartmatic system, which is run allegedly by a company called Seidel, which has servers in Spain and Germany, where apparently the Army sees a server, except Seidel doesn't have servers in Germany, has no operations in Germany, and the U.S. Army did not seize any servers. The Army has denied it. This company has denied it. The German government is now denying it. The American government is denying it. And yet you believe it. Why? Who is the gullible fool? These are the same machines used in Cuba and Venezuela to rig elections. Except they're not. They're not. Dominion voter systems is not operated in Cuba and Venezuela. Who is the gullible fool? There's this thing called statistics. You mean lies, damn lies, and statistics. It's quite better than the polling BS you always reference. You know what polling is? Statistics. How come all the swing states Trump was leading in the wee hours of the morning when the votes came in roaring for Biden? At about 96%, the same percentage in every state. That's not true. It did not come in at the same percentage in every state. However, the reason Biden shot up overnight is because under the laws of the 50 states, they count all of the day of votes before they count the absentee votes. So the absentee votes come in after most of the day of votes are in, because the absentee votes are so big they don't want to crash the system. So they wait until they've got most of the day of votes in. Then they put in the absentee ballots. And guess what? You had one campaign telling people don't go vote by absentee ballot. They're going to steal it. You had another campaign saying don't go to the polls because of the virus. Vote absentee. And guess what? Guess what? The campaign that encouraged people to vote by absentee balloting won the absentee ballot vote. That campaign was Joe Biden's campaign. So, of course, when the absentee ballots come in, they're going to shoot up. But wait, there's more, gullible fool. A lot of the data being used by people on the outside, you read all these websites, you'll see the name Edison Research coming up over and over and over and over. Edison Research is a third-party research firm the media uses to collect the voting data. They send people to election offices around the country, and as the votes are coming in, they either enter it on a cell phone or they call Edison Research and they put the data in. And oftentimes where you see votes going back and forth and shifts happening, that's actually the people for Edison Research, not affiliated with any state board of elections, who are making errors when they transmit the data, and they have to go back in and fix the data because they put in a number wrong, they transposed a number, they added an extra zero, and so you'll see somebody's number shoot up and then go back down. That's not an official report from secretaries of state. That's people working for Edison Research making mistakes with the data. The only official data comes from secretaries of state websites around the country. And you're not going to see those numbers go up and go down as errors are made, except in some cases where they, for example, put something in as Joe Biden and actually it should go for Donald Trump, and they may swap that, but it's very rare. Edison makes data errors all the time, and they every 15 to 20 minutes run an audit to correct it, and so you see the numbers shift around. That's what people are saying. Go to some of the big stories out there that show, aha, proof. I pulled up the JavaScript, and I can show you the Edison Research file where they shifted numbers around for the New York Times. Except that's just it. It's Edison Research. That's not a government database. That's not government numbers. That's a third-party researcher putting in numbers, and they can make mistakes. So I reply to this guy, and I tell him those servers are not in Germany or Spain, and he writes back, then where were they? And does it really matter where they are if the software is stealing the election? How do you see something like this? And what about the ballot harvesting? Do you care to address that? Stacey's been at it for years. Do you want to go into denial mode about that too? We know you hate Trump. You have a huge credibility factor to overcome. Wonder if this guy gave Trump any money, because I did. You know, I've talked about ballot harvesting. We're going to talk more about ballot harvesting, but where are the servers? The servers are in the several states where the Dominion voter systems machines are. Each state has its own system. And there is no software stealing the election. It doesn't exist. That's mythology created by Sidney Powell. It doesn't exist. And then he replies back after I tell him all that, with these tight margins and all these races, the ballot harvesting alone could rig the election. More importantly, when you have the liberals, especially Stacey Abrams, advocating moving to Georgia to vote. Actually, Abrams and the Democrats in Georgia are encouraging people not to do that because they're afraid it'll incite Republicans to go to the polls. Isn't it illegal or unethical and immoral? It is definitely unethical. This just shows how dangerous and corrupt these power-hungry liberals are. Just how complicit or corrupt do you think Stacey is? I don't understand why you're not outraged, because when they get power, you can kiss your love for Christ goodbye. Your Christian beliefs are in the crosshairs. They've had a damn good start using the virus as a jumping off point. You can riot and protest all you want, just can't go to church. Why don't you just call church services a protest, carry signs, get bullhorns, set a few trash cans on fire, be a rebel like Jesus? I said it right, that because he wrote that part in all caps. I'm pretty sure Stacey Abrams can't do anything to Jesus Christ. I'm sure that the faith in Christ and the church do quite well under persecution. How do I know? China. How do I know? Roman Empire. How do I know? Middle East. It's amazing how Christianity thrives in persecution. But by the way, it's not going to happen. Do I think Stacey Abrams is complicit in ballot harvesting? Yes, I do. Do I think there's massive vote fraud in this country? No, I don't. I pointed that out. So here we go. Do you think it was ethical for Kemp and Raffensperger to take millions of dollars for getting the Dominion voter systems here in Georgia? And is it a coincidence that every key battleground state has those machines? And in every one of those states, Trump was winning at midnight only to awake to defeat. Kemp and Raffensperger did not take money from Dominion voter systems. And there was not the same margins in every state. And the absentee ballots come in later, and Joe Biden's campaign ran an absentee ballot campaign. The Trump campaign did not. That's what's going on here. You better thoroughly explain to your listeners why Sidney Powell is a fraud. How do you see into the hardware and software of those Dominion machines, which interestingly were used in Cuba and Venezuela, outstanding examples of voter integrity? Again, they weren't used in Cuba or Venezuela. And how do you explain how the Republicans did so well everywhere else but not Trump? Because a lot of Republicans don't like Donald Trump, so they voted Republican down ballot, but they didn't vote for Donald Trump. Yeah, listen, I'm trying. I'm trying to do my level, patient best explaining this stuff to people. There are lots of lies out there, and this guy has bought hook, line, and sinker the lies. There are flat out lies. It is simply not true stuff. And it does everyone a disservice to have so many people believe so many lies, and it really does a disservice to their audience for Newsmax and OAN to have on people like Sidney Powell poisoning people's brains with this stuff because she is, frankly, used to be a credible person, and so she can come in and use that credibility to grift. I'm sure she's making a ton of money to run this case, but this stuff is simply not true. It is simply not true that Dominion voter systems is operating in Venezuela and Cuba. It is simply not true that its servers are in Germany. It is simply not true that the Army of the United States seized servers by this Seidel company in Germany. It is simply not true. It is simply not true that Brian Kemp got lots of money from Dominion voter systems. It is simply not true that Brad Raffensperger got lots of money from Dominion voter systems. It is simply not true that there was an error in the system swinging votes to Joe Biden overnight with big bumps. No, that was absentee votes coming in. It is simply not true, these allegations that are being made by people. And it really, it annoys me that they're lying to you, but it annoys me even more that so many people are willing to believe the lie. People got so emotionally invested in a candidate, they got into a bubble. They don't know anybody out there who doesn't support the guy. And so he loses, and they're like, how can this be? Everybody voted for him. This is like Pauline Kael from the New York Times when she went to bed reassured Nixon was going to lose and woke up and he won. She's like, nobody voted for the guy. How could he have won?